Hey, everybody, and welcome to AQ's Blog and Grill. We're really excited today to have Communitech CEO Iain Klugman here with us. Iain joined Communitech 15 years ago, and it was a very small, well-organized group that became, under Iain's leadership, this colossus of success. And most people give Iain credit, including Iain. So welcome, Iain.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks for having me on. Actually, it was 16 years ago today that I started at Communitech. I know.
My goodness, 16 years, and here you finally made it here on AQ's Blog and Grill. This is
it's worth the journey. It's so worth the journey.
The struggle was real. So I want to read a quote from past chairman Dave Caputo that refers to Iain. And apparently Dave had enough time between starting and selling multi-million-dollar organizations to make this comment. I'm not exaggerating when I say that Communitech is envied by cities around the world for the value it delivers to its member entrepreneurs, partners, and the community, said Dave Caputo, serial entrepreneur and chair of Communitech's board of directors. That envied status has everything to do with Iain's vision, drive, and ability to rally people around a cause. And that's a superlative statement, Iain. And how true is it?
Oh my gosh. Well, Dave's an incredibly generous individual. I really think that what we've been able to achieve has been, truly a team effort. And I have been lucky enough, maybe convincing enough to assemble just a world-class group of people in this organization that really have consistently, time and time again, been able to find new models and new ways of doing things and reinvent ourselves over multiple times over the last 16 years.
Yeah, I would say, Iain, that your ability to lead that reinvention is astounding. Quarry's been members of Communitech right back to probably Vince Sorelli days. Mm-hmm. And so we saw it get started and didn't know what was going to happen. And then you came along 16 years ago today and really have changed it. You flipped it and built this tremendous organization. What do you think, besides your fact that you were able to recruit really good folks to work with you, what else happened in the past 16 years?
I think that, we have really stayed true to the principles of our founders. We've really, we've always been driven. Our North Star has always been, working to ensure the long-term prosperity of our community and our country. Mm-hmm. We're not a for-profit. We don't have a profit motive. We really do have a community impact motive. I think the second thing is that we have consistently executed on an ecosystem or a small city strategy. People look at Communitech and they see a building, they see incubators, they see accelerators. But what is really under the hood and what is central to our success has been our focus on the ecosystem, ensuring we've got the right capital, talent and customers for our companies, ensuring we've got the right business environment and working very, very hard with our partners to put Waterloo Region on the map as being an important global ecosystem.
And I think you've achieved that. I think when people say, well, we're kind of Silicon Valley North, I don't agree with that. I don't think we're anything except Waterloo Region and Communitech. How do you feel about that comparison?
Well, I think, what we've really tried to be is not the Valley. And we look at the Valley and it certainly has given us many great things, but there's been an incredible cost to that. It is, I would use the word sick right now, I think, and not in the way the kids talk about sick. I think that unhealthy. But, because what has happened is it's become unlivable. It's left, 90% or 99% of the population behind. And so, yes, they've had global success, but at a huge cost. And really what we've tried to do is to say, you know what? There's a different way, maybe a more Canadian way, which cares about ensuring everybody's brought along, to building a really successful innovation cluster and really successful companies. And so it's been our thinking around this is that let's, instead of looking at copying other ecosystem strategies, and the Valley is a great example, is a classic tall tree strategy. Let's think about what's authentic to us. And when we think back over the last couple hundred years in Waterloo Region, we've been successful because of what we call collaborative capitalism. And so, David Johnson always used to talk a lot about barn raising, and the notion of collaboration has been central to who we are. And he's right. We think about the fact that we've been able to build, launch, and grow some of the largest liquor companies, food processing companies, insurance companies, and technology companies in the history of Canada, all from this little community. We would not be able to do that if it were not for our capacity to help each other be successful. Right. And I think it's that ethos, it's that notion of collaboration, which we believe is our long-term competitive advantage. It is what has made us successful in the past, and it's why we're investing now in what we call collaboratives through our Future of X initiatives.
Tell us a little bit more about that Future of X initiative. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're taking a page from our past, and we're saying for the next the next chapter of Communitech, perhaps the opportunity for us is to, instead of leaving these collaboratives or this collaboration to fate, as we have witnessed with either a big challenge we faced or a big opportunity we faced, can we stand these up in an intentional fashion against issues and opportunities? And so we're doing a Future of Work and Learning right now, which is bringing together 20 organizations from across the community to say, how do we become the most competitive community in the gig economy? How do we ensure, lifetime learning? How do we retain people who are displaced? But really, how do we be at the forefront as the workforce is going through this transition? And then we're saying, okay, let's take that and roll it out across the country, which has been consistently what we've done. We're working on one around the future of retail. We're talking about one around the future of mobility. We're thinking about one around the future of cities. And so really it's saying, how do we bring our authentic strategy, which has made us successful, and really drive that as far as the next chapter of Communitech, building on everything we've learned along the way.
Right. And I guess we're in for a real challenge in the near future, in that Google has just announced that they're expanding quite a bit in the Waterloo region, could be adding 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 jobs, which could change the housing market a little bit, and some of the transportation. Are we going to be able to stay ahead enough to absorb that kind of expansion into our community?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think we've really always been of the belief that healthy ecosystems are diverse ecosystems. We want small, medium, and large companies. We want homegrown and foreign companies. We want companies led by young and old, by people of different gender, by people of different color. But it's really key is to have no dominant player in the community. We've seen how that has played out in the past in other jurisdictions and in our own jurisdiction. We really know that diversity is key. And we're also looking for good partners. We don't want somebody who's going to come into the community who doesn't care about the community, isn't going to make more deposits than withdrawals, as we like to say. And I think with Google, we have consistently seen over the last 11 years that they're thoughtful, they're community minded, they're community committed, and that we will be able to absorb these additional roles in our community. And I think it's also an opportunity for us to double down on attracting new people to our community so that we're not fighting over the same people over and over again.
Right, because that really is kind of the war on talent in our community right now, is focused on, I've worked here, now I want to work there, now I want to work here. And I mean, that's human nature to a certain extent, or organizational behavior, but it doesn't allow maybe some of the startup or the emerging companies to find those assets of talent without losing them to, a glossier or shinier place. Of course, we never run into that at Quarry.
Yeah, I know, and I think we're all part of that. I mean, we, now the size we are and the caliber of talent that we have, we too are, have people coming after our people, and we just have to make sure that we come to work every day saying, we have to fight for the retention, not just the attraction of people. Right. And we need to find out where we fit and where we compete, because I mean, I think there's some people who really do want to work for a large global multinational for a whole bunch of good reasons. I think there's a lot of people who want to work for a small, scale-up, nimble company. I think there's a lot of people who want to bet the farm and go all in, being part of a startup journey. And I think that we need to, for each of these segments, we need to understand what does competitiveness look like and go to market with that in mind.
Right. So one of the things that's been very interesting and innovative with Communitech over the past decade has been how Communitech has brought companies, organizations in as partners and located right in the Lang Tannery there. And there seems to be some good spill from that in terms of recruiting and starting new projects. How did that all get started?
So, I mean, we've always been of the mind that, sort of the notion of strategic doing. So we don't kind of, beaver away on something and until we get down to, a fine pulp and we're ready to launch. We tend to go out with sometimes an alpha or a beta with an idea and say, let's get this out and see where it goes. There's a great expression that says no strategy survives first contact with the enemy. And it's true. And we operate with that assumption. And we don't tend to look at things in terms of success and fail. We tend to look at things as experiments. And so it's about, okay, what did we learn from that? Well, we learned that doesn't work. We learned, though, that there's this bigger opportunity over here. And we think about the hub, the Communitech hub, and the journey we started in 2007. And we can honestly say that, every assumption we made about how we thought it was going to work was wrong. And when we think about the corporate innovation program, and of course now the corporate innovation program we run here now is 65 large corporates and government, everything from TD and Manulife through to the Royal Canadian Air Force are located with us in our open innovation system. It's now become the largest open innovation facility in the world. And that started with an experiment. It started with something called the Apps Factory. And so this was 2010, and everything was app-tastic at the time, and everybody was obsessed with apps. And we said, why don't we put together a team of co-op students, and we'll do some hand-holding with the large corporates to help them understand, what does a mobile look like and what do apps look like, so they don't get either left behind or ripped off by suppliers. Right. And of course, it didn't work. But what ended up happening is that somebody came along and said, what if we were to do that for Canadian Tire? Yes. And we said, you know what? Okay, that's a conversation we want to have. And that, of course, was the birth of corporate innovation at Communitech, and now largest in the world. Yeah.
I remember Craig Haney was the guy that got started with the Canadian Tire experiment.
Yes, he was.
I was an entrepreneur in residence at that time there, and I would love seeing the co-op students come in with the executives. I mean, real bona fide blue suit executives from Canadian Tire and kick ideas around. I think it was a great learning experience for everybody, including those executives. So that's why it's working. 65 people now involved. That's amazing, Iain. It is amazing. And, we've evolved since then because the needs of the companies have changed as well. And so, we've worked very, very hard to make sure that, we haven't left behind, our companies. And so, that's been central to our strategy, is always to say, how are we relevant and valuable to you now on your evolutionary journey? We can't do the same things that we did, 8 years ago when we started this. So we've got to be focused now on the fact that there's a maturity, there's a much broader understanding of innovation journeys, and there's a different role for us to play with the companies than we did, 8 years ago when we started this exercise. Sure, that's a lifetime ago, and shift happens, and yes, indeed, yeah. Iain, I didn't realize you went to Dalhousie. What was that all about? That was a while ago. Yeah, it was a long time ago. I wanted to get out of Ontario, and I was interested in being on one of the coasts, and so it was a top up between UBC and Dal. And what won me over is that the head of the school actually called me and said, "We'd like you to come," and I didn't get the same response from Vancouver, so off I went to Dal. Yeah, and you were awarded a acronym of MPA. What does that stand for? So that's a public policy, public administration degree. Yes, it is. Yes. And yet, have you ever used it? I spent some time in government. Okay. I worked in the Privy Council office supporting the Prime Minister for a bunch of years, and then I worked in the provincial government as well. Right.
Not that I needed an MPA, but I actually also fought forest fire in Northern Ontario for 7 years. That's how I put myself through university. So
Wow.
I've been blessed with always having a balance of public and private experiences. And it's one of the things I love about this job is I have an opportunity of continuing to be engaged and involved in those big, meaty public policy conversations, but all within an organization which is nimble and quick. So it's the best of both worlds.
It really is, and congratulations for integrating those two worlds, because not many people could do it, frankly. One of the things that is going to be part of the Klugman legacy is how successful you have been in working the federal government and the provincial government to for a win-win situation. The province and the country have both won because of your activities, but also the businesses here in the Waterloo region and the people have won. So, well, that's really super. How many clients does Communitech now serve?
So we have over 1,400 members, and that's a mix of hundreds of startups, about 200 growth SMEs, growth scale-ups, and then about 100 large corporations. So it's a big number, and we've just gone through our latest review. So every 3 or 4 years, we do a big fundamental review looking at the needs of the community, the ecosystem, the needs of companies, where we fit, what other resources have evolved, what other communities are doing, and then we come back and say, okay, let's blow it all up and let's rebuild from here. And we're at that point in time right now where we just launched 6 months ago our new strategy, our new organization. And we're going to be rolling out the new Start, Scale, and Corporate programs within the next couple of weeks.
Wow.
And it takes really sort of everything we've learned along the way in the last 20 years and combines it with, well, what specifically are the needs of the companies now based on the maturity or the maturation, the growth and the evolution of the companies in the ecosystem. So it's exciting.
It is exciting. As you look back over the past 16 years, give me 3, if you can, highlights of the things that you're really proud that you were involved in with Communitech.
Well, I mean, I think the first would be the Fierce Founders program, which focuses on female founders. It took a while for us to be able to capitalize that program, but now we are able to support female founder companies, female-led companies, in a way that no one else can across the country. And increasingly, we're seeing other people saying we need to be thinking about what is our strategy, building on what Communitech has built. The fact that we've been able to put together things like 6-day boot camp ending and $100,000 cash prize where we take no equity, plus the sort of overall program is I think making a significant difference. And now, of course, we see alumni of the first few cohorts of this program getting to the next level and being role models for the next generation, and so it's been very rewarding. I think the second thing that we're very proud of, I'm very proud of, is being able to play a small role in a fundamental shift that happened in our community. And by that I mean, the exciting thing about tech ecosystems is they can move very, very quickly, but up until then it takes a long time to get anything going. We've dealt with things over the last 16 years. We started with an entrepreneurial deficit. No one wanted to be an entrepreneur. We had 8 startups one year in 2004. We finally got people focused and interested in doing startups. We had, over 500 for several years in a row, net new startups. Those are turning points. And one of the significant ones was up until Devin Galloway and Michael Litt came along with Vidyard. The normal course of affairs was you went to Y Combinator, you raised a bunch of money, and you stayed in the valley.
Right.
And those two individuals said, you know what? Hell no, we won't go. We're going to build our company right here in Waterloo Region. And they took a lot of flack from it, from the people at YC and from others that said, no, that's just not going to work. And it was a day I remember they had their greenhouse and there was a big party. celebrating it. And I remember walking back to my car with my knapsack and thinking, I played a small role in changing this community, in helping those individuals. And this is a turning point that I will always remember.
Right.
And I think the third thing is, really just, the work that we've been able to do in partnerships. For some reason or another, we've been able to build a trusted relationship with government, with startups, with scale-ups, with large corporations, to bring them together in different ways that have allowed us to do things that shouldn't be possible. I mean, we are, we work with organizations from around the world that study ecosystems like the Startup Compass and the Startup Genome. And they basically have said that, we're an aberration. They can explain any other ecosystem in the world because they're all north of 2 million people to begin with, except for us. And there's really no good reason why we should have had the success that we have had.
Right.
And I think that it really does come back to where I started, which is, our capacity to collaborate and pull together has been the secret ingredient in our success. And I think our ambition and our comfort with being ambitious, and I think our commitment to what I call the different social contract in this community,
yes,
really have been able to allow us to be far more successful than we probably should have over the last couple of 100 years.
It's neat that, yes, I agree with everything you've said there. And it's neat that we give ourselves permission to be successful, because that's not exactly the way Canadians think frequently. And yet here we go. And I always put a lot of credit to Dr. David Johnson and the U of W. And, as David would say, it's something in the water. I don't know. I think it's something in the air. I think it's the oxygen we breathe around here. And yeah, when you look at some of the other high-profile incubators and accelerator centers that are in Boulder and in San Francisco and in Boston, and those are just North American, and in San Francisco, of course, with Y Combinator and a couple of the others. Kaboom, we are hitting way above our weight. And some of that has to do with the individuals. Some of that has to do with the institutions. RIM losing its way, it flooded the market with so many brilliant people who were able to either start up or help startups. Yeah. And now you've got Mike Lazaridis doing Quantum Valley. And that's got to be something that your successor has to be dialed into. Is that not correct?
Yeah, no, I mean, I absolutely think so. I think that, the timing of RIM losing your way, as you say, was right at the time when we had managed to convince enough people to do startups that there was a ton of activity that was happening in the community. And we had a highly intentional strategy. We went out and raised a bunch of money from government and ran Tech Jobs Connects, where we went after every man, woman, and child coming out of BlackBerry and saying, hey, consider staying, and we will help you find a job.
Brilliant.
And we touched almost 3,000 people, and we're very, very proud of the work that we were able to do. I think Mike Lazaridis is one of my heroes. He and Doug Fergan have invested over $500 million into the quantum strategy, and And government has come along to their credit and said, yeah, we're in to be part of this journey. And it's an investment that was made, 15 years ago, long enough ago, and at a level that actually allows us to be part of whatever quantum ends up being. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it means we're not left out.
Right.
And I think that in these big technological shifts, the biggest risk, of course, is being left behind.
Right.
And thank goodness that they made these investments then. We could never make the investments necessary now to compete. I think the other areas that are emerging, which create great opportunity for us that we have as bench strengths in this community, are around cybersecurity, applied AI. We really do have some world-leading expertise as these things start to emerge and impact. The other one that's really interesting, of course, is the rise of MedTech in our community.
Yes.
About a third of our intake right now is MedTech companies, and it's exciting. They're much deeper science. But I think if we can find a way of rallying the community, we've got a potential of being a major MedTech cluster in the next 10 years.
Right. When are we going to get that hospital at University of Waterloo? That's a question.
It's a good question. I think I think the timing is right for us to think about a Waterloo regional healthcare strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And something that's purpose built for us, that's authentic and appropriate for us, and speaks to the longer term needs of this community, while leveraging the unique things that we do here. I mean, we don't do therapeutics and drug design, but we do engineering, and we do computer science, and we do all of those things. And for us, we look at this opportunity and say, what if we could build something authentic for us, where we could make a contribution not just to our community and the people in this community, but to the country,
right?
Because we think we are unique in the culture of this community, but also the critical mass of skills in certain areas,
right?
And so we'll continue to work on that. It continues to be one of my priorities.
Good.
Because and I think it's interesting. We just had a conversation with a group of people this morning. We were talking about healthcare, education, quality of life, affordability of homes, etc., as being absolutely just straight up competitive issues. And we've arrived at that point where everything is about attracting and retaining talent. And these are the 4 or 5 things that people say are must-haves in order for them to move here, as opposed to Portland, Oregon, or Seattle.
Right.
And so, when we start to bring a competitive lens to these things, it becomes a very different conversation than otherwise.
Yeah. Wow, it's going to be exciting. And I'm so happy to hear, Iain, that you're going to be staying around, because there's lots more to do.
Yes, there is.
After 2021. Thank you very much for spending some time with us today, Iain. We're illuminated, we're enlightened by your energy and your wisdom. So thanks again for being on AQ's Blog and Grill. We'll be publishing all sorts of neat links for our viewers to connect to Communitech and to Iain himself. So thank you, Iain, and we'll see you later.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
AQ's Blog and Grill.